I just finished an unbelievable episode with Kodi Riddle, who this year will do 2.3 million GCI with 55% profit margin. She told me a story of a recent vacation she took where she came back, and this was a long weekend, 4 or 5 day weekend. She came back to 5 commission checks in hand and 3 listing appointments set for her on the couple days when she got back. So she has achieved, almost every bit of leverage she could possibly achieve in her business. And it wasn't always that way. 2015 was when Kodi started with Real Estate B School. And I think she said that year she sold 41 homes, her and her husband and an administrator. And she has come to the point where she has a 13-person team and she is scaling beyond what she ever thought was possible. I want to hone in specifically on this follow-up episode about the journey. And this journey from agent, top agent to business owner. And in Real Estate B School, this is what we teach. This is what I obsess over. This is why I started Real Estate B School in 2013. My journey in real estate took me about 6 years from the start of my real estate business to fully leveraged 300 plus transactions per year, where I'm not doing much of anything in the business. And that is what we teach, concepts of leverage. Yet, as you'll recall, if you missed the episode, go back one episode. Kodi got into a bunch of issues around mindset and comparison and all the different things, control and fear and the challenges that we go through over and over again, what we have to push through if we're going to achieve true business ownership in the real estate industry. And so I want to go into 3 tactical steps. The first one is to begin with the end in mind. The second one is your world versus the world and avoiding the comparison game. And then the third is to know the stages of business growth. So let's jump right in. Our most successful members and folks that actually build a business worth owning so they can live a life worth living are very clear about where they're going. And so this concept of beginning with the end in mind escapes most highly productive real estate agents and even team leaders, in that they're not clear on their destination in their business. And more often than not, they're not clear in where they want to be in any area of their life that matters. So their marriage, their relationship with their kids, their physical body, their emotional well-being, their spiritual journey, right? Without a specific, end in mind, the chances that we hit it are literally impossible because we haven't identified it. And it's not that it's always going to be exactly a straight line. So let's envision in Kodi's example, a tripling of the business, well, probably a quadrupling when it comes from GCI, and probably a 6-7 times increase when it comes to take home net income in her 5-year journey in Real Estate B School. The clarity in terms of what was missing in Kodi's business when she started with Real Estate B School, her time wasn't her own. She didn't know her numbers. She wasn't clear on how all of her effort was translating into increasing her net worth. She didn't have a lot of freedom. She was stressed out. She was out of love with her business. And so this beginning with the end in mind, there's a very popular book. I forget what book it is. It's in Proverbs, where the scripture is, where there is no vision, the people perish. And I believe that is true for us personally, when it comes to our businesses, when it comes to our personal lives, or any area of life that we want to achieve at a high level. We have to be clear on where we're going. So if you're selling 40 to 50 homes today and you are losing your mind and your relationships aren't strong and you're not tending to your physical body and you want to grow, so you have this natural drive in you to grow, you have to make a commitment to specifically, declare 3 years from now, I'm going to be selling 150 homes. I'm only going to be working with SOI sellers. I'm going to be working less than 50 hours a week. I have a fully leveraged team around me, crushing it, selling an additional 100 homes. I'm taking home, 7-figure income. Get really granular on where you're going. So that's number one, begin with the end in mind. Number 2 is this comparison game and avoiding the comparison game. I call it your world versus the world. We gave examples on Kodi's episode about teams and team leaders that are selling a bunch of real estate, right? They're doing great, right? We put them on a pedestal, yet we don't know their profitability. We don't know if they have a strong marriage, or if they are able to take time away from their business, or if their net worth is increasing, or, we don't know anything about them or their business, yet we still want to think that we're less than them. Kodi really has struggled with this. And I would take her business over 99.9% of the real estate team leaders that I've talked to over the last 8 years of my journey in building Real Estate B School, and specifically helping real estate team builders. And yet there still is this, I'm not quite enough. I'm not quite enough. Look at that guy, has it better than me. Look at that, girl over there running that team. She must have something figured out that I don't have figured out. And so the way to avoid this trap, this comparison trap, where we're constantly comparing our insides, our ugly pieces, with everyone's outsides, what they put on Instagram or Facebook, or how many homes they sell versus the profit they take home, right? So how do we avoid that? There's a couple things here. The first is to get really clear on your world. Like, what is my world? What are the things I care about? Right? I care about my schedule. I care about my relationship with my spouse, my relationship with my kids, my physical body, getting in the word. I care about my emotional well-being, maybe a sibling or a parent, right? Get really clear on what those things are. And then what's the world? I was asked the question. So that's number one, get clear on what's important to you. The step two of this step two, part two of this step two, is to eliminate the things from the world that have no bearing on your world. So constantly getting in social media and thinking like, oh, look at that person, their spouse and their pretty kids and that nice car, and like, wonder what they have going on that I don't have going on. Or constantly and incessantly watching the news, right? That's the world. That's not what's happening in another country. Doesn't really have an impact on the world that you've defined in the first step of this part two, right? So get clear on the world versus your world. And then it becomes really, really easy to focus on the things that matter most. Another tip here is to give yourself credit. And Kodi elaborated on this. Give yourself credit for how far you've come. Hard charging business builders tend to be so focused on the future that we rarely take note of where we've come from. And so Kodi built a business like less than 500,000 GCI, about 400 or so, increased it to 2.3 million with a 7-figure take home. And she's taking steps to get out of production 100%, and she'll do it and still maintain a 7-figure net income. Yet she still felt like she wasn't achieving. That's because she's looking up the mountain and she hasn't looked back to see how far she's come. Luckily, she's building her business on the right mountain. There are a lot of real estate team builders out there that have, they're focused on just top line only, and they get to the top of the mountain. They have a $3, $4, $5 million business, and it's marginally profitable, if not for their own production. And so that's number two, your world versus their world, or the world, and to avoid the comparison game. The third thing here is to know the stages of growth. When I started Real Estate B School, I didn't quite know what the stages were. I knew that it took me about 6 years to navigate agent to true owner, down to 1 day a week where the business ran without me intervening much at all. 6-year journey. Yet it took me 3, 4, 5 years in working with dozens and now hundreds of real estate team builders for me to detail the 6 specific stages of growth you'll have to follow in order to build a business that is on the right economic model, that brings in people that you want to be around and you want to serve, that is systems driven and your people are empowered and it's high culture. The cadence it's a tight cadence. Everybody knows what they're doing. It's a new business development focused business that is tracking everything they do, right? This is a high performance organization that we're building, and you've got to know the stages, and you have to know what questions at each stage that you're asking yourself, and the struggles that the next stage is going to bring, and the tools and systems that you're going to build out at each particular stage, and what your team structure looks like, and how much you'll be making, and the tasks that you'll have to shed and delegate so you can elevate in your business. These are all the things that you need to know as you ascend these different stages of growth. And you may be at, let's call it stage 3, which is 500,000 to $1 million in the Real Estate Business Growth Navigator, yet you missed something in stage 2. So you've got to go back. You've got to go back and put a tool or a system in place. Maybe you missed the concept of economic model and knowing your economic model. Value-based commission splits when you bring an agent on your team, how to train them properly, how to track their numbers, how to get them to embrace accountability and discipline. Or you may have missed those things. You got to slow down a little bit, adopt some of the tools and systems from the prior stage so you can move on to the next stage. And the last part here is that I put together a report specifically to navigate these 6 stages of growth. You can go to realestatebusinessgrowth.com to grab a free copy. There's no agenda whatsoever. It is packed full of content. Just go to realestatebusinessgrowth.com to grab a copy right now. It will detail the strategic questions, the tools and systems that you need to focus on, how you're feeling at each stage, what your team structure looks like, how many hours you'll be putting in, how much money you'll be making at a specific stage. It is chock full of just pure value. So go to realestatebusinessgrowth.com. And if you want to have a conversation about your business, where you're at, you need to be in a world that is applying sound business principles to help you scale your business without losing your life. You could be our next case study. Go to rebscasestudy.com. That's rebscasestudy.com. We'll see you over there. Be good.